Van Gogh is a famous Impressionist painter. However, he did not start out that way. He was born May 30th, 1853 in Groot Zundert, Holland. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. His father was a Protestant preacher, and so Van Gogh's first career choice was as a preacher in Belgium. Unfortunately, he was asked to leave the church because they considered him to be overzealous. So after that, he actually decided to try and work as an art dealer. He also was not good at that and decided to leave that career path as well. His brother, however, Theodore Van Gogh, became a pretty well-off art dealer. He was good at that job. Over the next few years, at the age of 27, Vincent van Gogh decided to move from place to place and teach himself how to draw and how to paint. And that's when he started to become pretty good at it. That's when he started getting into Impressionism. He liked to paint himself in self-portraits. That was something he liked to do. He liked to send those self-portraits to his family in particular. Instead of sending a photograph, in his mind, through his journals, he believed that sending a photograph wasn't a good depiction of who he was, or it didn't represent him well. That was his belief. So he would paint what he believed people wanted to see. Unfortunately, a lot of the times it wasn't what was really happening, but that's why in history it's mostly self-portraits of him and not pictures. He didn't like pictures at all. He decided to get a fresh start in the year of 1888, and that's the year that he moved to a little province in France called Arles. And when he was in Arles, he rented a little yellow house, which is depicted in a lot of his paintings. The yellow house, and there was a bar right across the street where he also painted some of his portraits. And that's where he painted sunflowers, and there's a famous portrait of his bedroom that he was staying in at the time. He's known to have been wearing a straw hat very often and a painter's smock covered in paint. He's done some self-portraits with that too, and all the fields. He painted a lot of that too. But he wanted to have an artist community in Arles. That was his dream. So he asked his friend Paul Gauguin to come live with him in Arles, France. And they did pretty well together. They didn't get along famously, but they worked out fairly well. Unfortunately, they did start to argue, and December 23rd, 1888 is when that really came to a head, and Paul Gauguin had decided he wanted to leave, and he told Vincent van Gogh he was ready to move on. Unfortunately, from the letters Gauguin wrote at that point, Van Gogh went into a bit of a psychotic frenzy, and he ended up cutting off his own earlobe, his left earlobe, during that altercation, which he's pretty famous for at this point. Now we know that he cut off his ear. But he ended up getting committed to a mental hospital at that point. The people in Arles, France were scared of him, and they did not want him there anymore. During his stay, though, at this mental hospital is when he painted Starry Night, which is a very well-known painting today. He stayed a while there. That is when he was diagnosed with alcoholism and bipolar disorder. It was also at that time that he was diagnosed with syphilis, so he had STDs as well, which definitely were a big part of his psychotic episodes leading up to this point. He was able to stay out of the mental hospitals for several months, doing fairly well. He was doing therapy. He had someone he was speaking with, but unfortunately, on July 27th, 1890, Vincent van Gogh shot himself in the chest without really any provocation, and 3 days later, he died from his wounds in the arms of his brother Theodore. So that ended Vincent van Gogh's legacy at that time, and as we all know, he didn't really have much success during his life, and after he died, he became pretty well known and famous. It's sad that it took that much, but that is the story of Vincent van Gogh.